Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Let's go and check out top 10 worst WWE returns of all time.
Seeing your favorite wrestler make a triumphant return can be one of the best moments. It can also be one of the worst when you see how they get treated. A prime example of this is number 10, Christian. I mean, when this is the reaction you get when you come back.
It's Christian!
Your return is basically doomed from the start. After leaving WWE in 2005, Christian almost immediately appeared in TNA. While his career in total non-stop action lasted only 3 years, Christian was utilized extremely well, arguably better than how WWE used him. So, once Christian left TNA in late 2008, you would hope WWE would see what they missed out on and get it right the second time.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, no. When you know what was going on backstage, it's easy to see why Christian's WWE return was destined to fail. You remember all that crazy stuff that was happening to Jeff Hardy in late 2008 and early 2009 where he was getting attacked and whatnot? It ended up being Matt Hardy who was responsible, but originally it was supposed to be Christian. In fact, Captain Charisma was supposed to return at the 2009 Royal Rumble and cost Jeff Hardy the WWE Championship. However, fans knew Christian had left TNA and was headed for a WWE return, so WWE worried that if Christian was revealed as Jeff Hardy's assailant, then it would be too predictable. That would have been a great return for Christian, but instead he got thrown on ECW. No disrespect to the brand, but it was the third tier show. Now Christian went on to win the ECW Championship only a few months after his return, and he remained champion pretty much until ECW was shut down in 2010. However, having Christian become the face of ECW shows that the company only saw so much value in him. About a year after ECW folded, Christian won the World Heavyweight Championship, twice as a matter of fact. But combined, Christian was only world champion for 30 days. Not only was that not enough time to make an impact, but it also felt like the entire reason WWE had Christian win the world title was because of Edge's unexpected retirement. Christian had proven in TNA that he could be a main event star, but for whatever reason, WWE didn't agree. Making matters worse, about 5 years after his return, Christian suffered a concussion that kept him out of action and abruptly ended his WWE career. Number 9, Braun Strowman. Okay, I'm taking a bit of a gamble with this one since Strowman is still in WWE, and for the record, I hope this inclusion ages like milk because I really like Strowman.
You're not the only one who actually really likes Strowman. Even today, whenever he appears, the hype is real.
Monster Among Men debuted in 2015 and made an immediate impact by being part of the Wyatt family. Once the group broke up, Strowman remained strong and WWE utilized him really well. He was flipping giant vehicles, knocking people off the stage in porta potties, he even pulled down the entire stage at one point. While Strowman wasn't going to be the face of the company, he could easily be the next Kane, a big guy who could still move and could be thrown into any storyline or rivalry. It seemed like WWE had set it in stone too when Braun defeated Goldberg at WrestleMania 36 and won the Universal Championship. However, a little over a year later, the Monster Among Men was shockingly released from his contract. However, WWE soon changed their mind, and in September 2022, the Strowman Express had returned. But can you really think of anything amazing that he's done since then? During his first run, it seemed like WWE always had a plan for Braun, or at least something for him to do. Since his return, there's been almost nothing memorable. The reason though I put Braun Strowman on this list is that WWE themselves have shown that he's capable of so much more. Now, to be fair, Strowman has suffered 2 major injuries since his return that have kept him on the sidelines. Maybe once he's healthy, Braun Strowman will get the same momentum back, but I'm not holding my breath. Number 8, Gail Kim. Here's someone who is ahead of her time. Kim's first run in WWE lasted only about a year, but still, it wasn't awful. She won the women's title in her first match and went on to feud Trish Stratus and Lita. However, a broken collarbone and later an abrupt release didn't allow Kim to accomplish much. She then joined TNA, where her true potential was shown. She, along with Awesome Khan, put TNA's women's, or Knockouts division, on the map and arguably helped elevate women's wrestling in general. However, once her TNA contract expired, Kim re-signed with WWE. You would hope that now, after proving what she could do, that WWE would realize what they had with Gail Kim, but of course, they did not. Kim returned to WWE in March 2009, attacking Maurice and Michelle McCool during a Divas Championship match. While it was a hopeful start, it was pretty much all downhill from there. Gail Kim would challenge for the Divas title multiple times, but never won it. Her push was also pretty sporadic, and there were long periods where she did nothing. Just to demonstrate how much WWE didn't value Gail Kim, her return lasted about 2.5 years. During that time, she competed in 6 pay-per-view matches and only won 1 of them, and that was a 5-on-5 Survivor Series match. The other problem with Gail Kim's WWE return was the roster. I'm not trying to crap on anyone, and there were some solid female wrestlers at the time, but this was during the Divas era. WWE was prioritizing looks over skill in the ring. In fact, Gail Kim sort of became a victim of this era, as one of her final WWE storylines involved a love triangle between her, Daniel Bryan, and the Bella Twins. Or would that be a quadrangle? Anyways, Gail Kim's backstage frustration spilled over onto TV. In what ended up being her final match, Kim competed in a battle royal on Raw, where she broke character and eliminated herself. It's just a real shame considering how good Gail Kim was, and if she had come back a few years later when the women's revolution started, things could have been much different for her. Gail Kim's return isn't a case of WWE not knowing what they had. They knew what Kim could do, but they chose not to do anything. Number 7, Charlie Haas. This return is really sad to watch. Debuting in December 2002, Charlie Haas seemed to be a future star in the making. He was an accomplished amateur wrestler in school, and he and Shelton Benjamin were paired with Kurt Angle. Haas and Benjamin became known as the world's greatest tag team, and even became 2-time WWE Tag Team Champions. However, during the 2004 WWE Draft, the group was split up, with Charlie going to SmackDown. Haas's time as a solo competitor was pretty uneventful, besides winning the tag team titles a third time with Rico, and being part of a love triangle storyline. In July 2005, Charlie Haas was released, but his story in WWE wasn't over. Less than a year later, Charlie Haas returned. And... yeah, there was no crowd reaction. It wasn't even just a one-time thing. This kept happening, and eventually got called the Haas Pop. I told you, this return was just sad. After that, Charlie Haas just floated around WWE with not much to do. In fact, his first storyline after he returned happened by accident. While making his entrance, Haas unintentionally knocked announcer Lillian Garcia off the ring. This led to Charlie Haas and Viscera fighting for Lillian Garcia's affection, but it was nothing to write home about. Towards the end of Charlie Haas's return, he started impersonating other wrestlers, and that was arguably his most popular gimmick of his entire WWE career. While Charlie Haas would have his moments, his return was mainly just him puttering around, which makes you wonder why WWE even bothered bringing him back to begin with. In February 2010, almost 4 years after his return, Charlie Haas was released from his contract. Now, the reason I ranked Charlie Haas kind of low is just because he didn't have that high of expectations. This next wrestler had no expectations and was still a major disappointment. And that's number 6, Eva Marie.
I thought
for every wrestler in this video, there was at least some demand for them to return. I don't think anyone was asking for an Eva Marie return. Eva joined WWE in 2013 after coming across a casting call by chance. She would make her debut a few months later and became a key figure in the Total Divas reality TV show. However, this rush to get her on TV came at the expense of her wrestling ability. She was sloppy in the ring, she lacked charisma, and wasn't a great talker either. She'd be taken off TV for sporadic periods, and while she had moments of brilliance, none of them ever stuck. By 2017, Eva Marie had left WWE, but in October 2020, it was revealed that the redhead was making a comeback. Still, it wouldn't be until May 2021 that rumblings of her return began. Marie's new character was that of a celebrity influencer who wanted to help people achieve their goals. Once she finally made her return in June 2021, Eva was accompanied by a woman who was later named Dewdrop. Dewdrop would often fight on Eva Marie's behalf, but Eva would declare herself the sole winner. This created tension and ultimately led to a feud with Alexa Bliss. Eva and Bliss fought at SummerSlam in a match that wasn't Eva Marie's worst, but lacked substance. It wasn't of a high enough caliber for WWE's second biggest show of the year. After that match, Dewdrop turned on Eva Marie, and the redhead was let go not long after. With how short it was, it makes you wonder why WWE bothered bringing Eva back in the first place. The storyline and character WWE gave her maybe could have worked, but the execution was bad and just wasn't interesting or entertaining. Number 5, Shelton Benjamin. In 2016, WWE brought back the brand split, which meant that Raw and SmackDown would have their own rosters. However, taking one roster and splitting it into two left both feeling a little empty. To help fill the space, it was announced that Shelton Benjamin would be joining SmackDown. The gold standard hadn't been seen in WWE in over 6 years, and most fans felt like he could have done more. With more experience under his belt and a fresh new roster for him to work with, it seemed like now was a perfect time for Benjamin to make his return. However, things got off to a rough start almost immediately. After the announcement, Shelton Benjamin suffered a torn rotator cuff that required surgery. Because of this, it wouldn't be until a year later that he would finally make his WWE return. Once he did, Shelton was paired with Chad Gable in what was a spiritual successor to the world's greatest tag team. Things started out fine enough. Benjamin and Gable got some solid wins, and both were able to show off their abilities. After a few months, they finally went after the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, which is held by the Usos. Benjamin and Gable actually did defeat Jimmy and Jay in a title match, but the decision was reversed when the referee realized that the Wrong Twin was pinned. This led Shelton and Chad to turn heel, blaming the referee, going after the
because they're
fans
twins,
and accusing
because they're
SmackDown
twins.
General Manager Daniel Bryan of being biased. The heel turn didn't lead to a title victory or really amount to much, and just a few months later, Benjamin and Gable were split up during the 2018 draft. Shelton stayed on SmackDown, and this was when his return really started to crumble. Benjamin didn't do anything of note except for the occasional standout match here and there. His career wouldn't pick back up until mid-2020, when he, along with MVP Bobby Lashley and later Cedric Alexander, formed the Hurt Business. This was easily the highlight of Benjamin's second run in WWE, and even led to him and Cedric becoming the Raw Tag Team Champions. As is often the case in these factions though, the one guy who benefited the most from this pairing was Bobby Lashley. Benjamin and Alexander played second fiddle, and in March 2021, they lost the Raw Tag Team Championship. This led to tension building in the group, and ultimately, Shelton and Cedric were kicked out. The two continued their tag team on their own, but that didn't go anywhere, and the group was broken up. Then, without reason, Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander were back together and helping Bobby Lashley, only for that to go absolutely nowhere. The gold standard continued to just exist on the roster until another Hurt Business reunion was teased in early 2023. This again didn't go anywhere, and about 6 years after his return, Benjamin was released from his contract. Now, people will bring up the fact that Benjamin was 42 when he returned, and that he was never a great talker.
Yeah.
That's fair enough, but that didn't stop WWE from pushing guys like AJ Styles. Well, Shelton Benjamin wasn't going to be world champion.
Excuse me, what are you trying to say? Wait, let's go back.
And about 6 years after his return, Benjamin was released from his contract. Now, people will bring up the fact that Benjamin was 42 when he returned, and that he was never a great talker. That's fair enough, but that didn't stop WWE from pushing guys like AJ Styles. Well,
Okay, I think he meant the old age. He did like being older, not that AJ Styles is not a great talker on the mic. Just the sentences there didn't really align. Like, how dare you? AJ is amazing on the
Shelton Benjamin wasn't going to be world champion. You'd think he could have been utilized better than what WWE did with him. The Hurt Business was great, but as I mentioned, Shelton was more of a background character. He was mainly there just to help further a feud or build up Lashley's next opponent. On top of that, anytime he and Lashley got physical, Bobby usually beat down Shelton with ease. It was even more embarrassing when both Benjamin and Cedric got beaten down together. I do wonder if things would have been different had Benjamin not got hurt after his return was announced. I mean, Jinder Mahal got zero fanfare when he returned in 2016, and a few months later, he won the WWE Championship. Number 4, the Dudley Boyz.
I don't understand
Bubba Ray
why.
and Devon are one of the greatest tag teams in all of wrestling. They've had success everywhere they've gone, whether it be ECW, TNA, or WWE. Well, at least the first time. In the summer of 2015,
nice
the
seeing,
Dudley Boyz made a surprise
them back.
return to World Wrestling Entertainment. Initially, things started off hot, with Bubba and Devon beginning a feud with the tag team champions, the New Day. The matches weren't much to write home about though, and the Dudleys never won the titles. After that, Bubba Ray and Devon moved on to a feud with the Wyatt family. That's how Tommy Dreamer and Rhino returned to help their fellow ECW originals. However, like before, the matches they had were nothing amazing, and the Dudleys lost again. But it was in 2016 that Bubba and Devon's return really went downhill. In February, the Dudleys turned heel and declared it wasn't the tables that won them all their championships, but themselves. On top of that, Bubba and Devon said that they would be going table free and wouldn't use them anymore in their matches. What was the point of this? The tables were a signature part of the Dudley Boyz characters. Their catchphrase was literally, "Get the tables." And now they're just throwing it away? And just so you know, about 2 months after they said they weren't going to use tables, the Dudleys beat the Usos in a tables match. No explanation was given for why they had a change of heart. It was just dropped. For the next roughly 4 months after that, the Dudleys just kind of existed in WWE until August 2016, when they announced their farewells. While it was cool to see the Dudley Boyz back in WWE for one more run, it was a very pointless run. A lot of their matches were meh or just bad, and they had a worthless heel turn and character change. Sure, a Dudley Boyz return at that point wasn't going to be phenomenal, but they could have and should have done something better. While an excuse can be made for the Dudleys, there's no excuse for this next wrestler. Number 3, the Ultimate Warrior. Warrior's wrestling career is fascinating, mainly because of the drama that happened behind the scenes. It varies a bit based on who you talk to, but the Ultimate Warrior and WWE seem to always be at odds with each other. There's the infamous story of Warrior refusing to wrestle at SummerSlam 1991 unless he was given more money, his personal rivalry with Hulk Hogan, and much more. I bring this all up to say that Ultimate Warrior's WWE return in 1996 was on shaky ground. Warrior made his grand comeback at WrestleMania 12. Fans hadn't seen Warrior in about 3.5 years, and by this this point, a lot of things had changed. WWE's TV ratings,
loved him.
attendance, and overall popularity were down, and since their rival, WCW, had signed most of WWE's established name talent, the company snagged the one person who hadn't joined the other side. Warrior's WrestleMania opponent was a young Triple H. Warrior no-sold the game's finisher, and then proceeded to beat him in under 2 minutes. Despite the strong comeback, things went downhill almost immediately. Warrior's first feud was with Goldust, and it was just odd and boring. Then, Warrior went on to feud with Jerry Lawler, the commentator. During his entire return, the Ultimate Warrior just felt out of place. He was still basically the same character he had been in the 80s and early 90s, but would now occasionally swear among some other edgier traits. It was kind of like when Hulk Hogan embraced the dark side in 1995. It just felt odd and wasn't good. While things were bad enough on screen, things backstage were worse. By all accounts, Warrior was a diva and difficult to work with. You can even see this spill out on screen. During his feud with Jerry Lawler, the King hit the Warrior with a glass frame. However, the Warrior didn't trust Lawler, so he wore a hat that was completely out of place for him and basically told viewers what was going to happen. Warrior himself didn't seem to have any motivation or desire to be there. In fact, part of the deal between WWE and Ultimate Warrior was that WWE would promote Warrior's comic book and his wrestling school. It's not surprising then that Warrior's return was short-lived. After no-showing several events, WWE and the Ultimate Warrior officially broke up. Even if you take all the backstage drama out of it, Warrior's WWE return wasn't going to work. The same month Ultimate Warrior left WWE, Hulk Hogan turned heel and formed the NWO. Wrestling was changing, and Ultimate Warrior was going to need to reinvent himself if he wanted to survive. It's not shocking that whenever WWE talks about the Ultimate Warrior today, they always leave out his 1996 return. Number 2, Alberto Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio is a fascinating case study of what went wrong. The Mexican aristocrat debuted in August 2010, and WWE made him a top priority. He feuded with Rey Mysterio and then won the 2011 Royal Rumble. While he didn't win his WrestleMania match, Del Rio did win Money in the Bank a few months later. He cashed in at SummerSlam and became WWE champion almost exactly 1 year after his debut. Over the next 3 years, Alberto won the WWE Championship a second time.
I feel like this is what they have been doing and still are doing nowadays. They bring someone back and they give them like really awesome run. It's maybe like lacking an actual story, but they give them like wins and titles and runs for the titles without even earning that, like without them being there to earn it. And after they sometimes even win it, that's it, the end, then they like defend it here and there and then they lose it. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. I would rather have someone come from scratch and then prove themselves to me. I grew up with them from zero to hero, and then they earn the title, really earn it and have it and defend it and start another story or something. Like, yeah, I would rather have something like that, because whenever they do this, it flops. It doesn't last long. The hype is gone after they get their title, like, because everything was around them actually winning that title, So once you reach the goal, what's next for you?
And became a 2-time world heavyweight champion. While Del Rio started off as a bad guy, he later became a babyface, and it seemed like WWE was going to make him the next big Latino star. However, in 2014, an altercation backstage with an employee resulted in Alberto Del Rio getting fired. Despite how it ended, it seemed like WWE was all in on making Alberto a superstar, and about a year after his release, WWE gave Del Rio a second chance. At the 2015 Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, Alberto made a surprise return to challenge John Cena for the United States Championship. Del Rio won, but the victory was somewhat overshadowed by the man in his corner. Zeb Coulter was now Alberto Del Rio's manager. What made this such an odd pairing was that back in 2013, Del Rio was feuding with Coulter when Zeb was managing Jack Swagger. During that rivalry, Coulter and Swagger both played anti-immigrant characters and claimed that people from Mexico were ruining America. Because of that, the pairing of Alberto and Zeb Coulter seemed out of place. To make it even more bizarre, Del Rio and Coulter stated that they were starting a new country, Mex-America. However, this storyline was dropped a month later when Alberto Del Rio ditched Zeb Coulter and formed a new faction with Sheamus, Wade Barrett, and Rusev called the League of Nations. While it sounds like a good idea, the whole group was made for one purpose: to get fans to like Roman Reigns. Because of this, Del Rio and the other three were basically just human punching bags, and when the group failed to get fans to cheer Roman, it was over. Del Rio lost his US title in January 2016, and by April, the League of Nations was done. Alberto puttered around for a few more months before he got suspended for violating WWE's wellness policy. This soon led to Del Rio leaving the company, saying he had been given empty promises about a main event push. Hearing that makes me wonder what WWE told Alberto Del Rio backstage. From the beginning, Alberto's WWE return was off to a rocky start. Had they not done that awkward pairing and Mex-American storyline with Zeb Coulter, maybe things could have been different. But once Alberto was fed to Roman Reigns, the writing was on the wall, and Del Rio's second run would be nothing like his first. Now all these have been some awful returns, so which wrestler has the dishonor of the worst return ever? Well, and the number one worst WWE return of all time is
Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels.
Oh my god, yes!
Now, I'm not talking about Shawn Michaels' return in 2002. That second run he had was phenomenal, and arguably better than his first.
The Crown Jewel one?
I'm talking about Michael's short but very painful run in 2018. After putting his career on the line in 2010 and losing to The Undertaker, the Heartbreak Kid was forced to retire. What really stood out though was that he stayed true to that. Sure, Michaels would usually appear on TV at least once per year, but he never wrestled again. This might seem like a no-brainer, but seasoned wrestling fans know that when a wrestler says they're done, they never are. In addition to honoring his word, Shawn Michaels had a perfect end to his career. He competed in the main event of WrestleMania against his greatest rival. It couldn't be done more perfectly, but like all good things, it was eventually ruined. In 2018, Triple H and The Undertaker began a feud that saw them face off at Super Showdown in Australia. The two were not alone, as Undertaker had Kane in his corner and Triple H had Shawn Michaels. Michaels assisted Triple H in the game to feed the dead man. However, both HBK and the King of Canes got laid out after the match by the Brothers of Destruction. After this, Michaels decided now is the time to come out of retirement. At the next pay-per-view, Crown Jewel, fans will get to see a dream match come to life. D-Generation X versus the Brothers of Destruction.
And now, like, on paper, this legit sounds so good. But guys, you have to know, like, their prime time was way behind them. Way behind them. And the only reason, they knew that they're not going to perform very well. And the only reason they decided to do it, even unprepared, is because of the money. So I'm not gonna really remember him by this one. What I'm gonna do is appreciate this match for what it is, them getting actually paid for all the hard work that they gave us and all the entertainment that they gave us previously. Okay, but we erase this one. This one doesn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about.
First problem with Shawn Michaels' return. As soon as the match was announced, the conversation amongst fans wasn't about how cool it would be to see these four legends in the ring. Rather, people started criticizing the Heartbreak Kid. Crown Jewel was hosted in Saudi Arabia. For those who don't know, the government of Saudi Arabia pays WWE to host shows in their country, and Crown Jewel was no different. While exact figures aren't available, it's reported that wrestlers make really good money when they wrestle in Saudi Arabia, and I have no doubt that Shawn Michaels was paid very handsomely. So because of this, fans criticized HBK for selling out and only deciding to come out of retirement for a big payday. Additionally,
like, I hope we live in an age where we don't do that. And I feel like it is the case lately that we don't do that, especially the last couple of years. For example, as a streamer, you go and you are exclusively by contract streaming on YouTube or on Kick or on Twitch. And back in the day, if you did something like that, they would call you a sellout. But now they know, like, go wherever you are paid more, because they appreciate your work and your entertainment. They can go and watch you somewhere else, but they know that you are paid for it, and they want to support you even if it means not directly from them. And nowadays, like, there is no shame in going for these opportunities, like literally no shame. But maybe back in the day, it was a bit more shameful.
There was, and still is, a moral and ethical argument with WWE and its wrestlers working with the Saudi Arabian government. I bring that up just because it made Shawn Michaels' return that much more controversial. Regardless, Shawn Michaels...
It doesn't affect us. We still have all these other events. Just because we have Crown Jewel doesn't mean that it takes away from anything else. America has so many events happening, and they're weekly, and like literally Raw, NXT, SmackDown every single week. They always visit different states. America has so many opportunities and so many events to celebrate and watch their favorite wrestlers. And they do perform very well. The Crown Jewel event, it doesn't even like take away from WrestleMania or any major thing. They don't even do major storyline shifts or endings or whatever in Crown Jewel. It's just an extra thing, and at the end of the day, the company gets paid handsomely and the wrestlers as well, and all of that goes back into entertaining you in America because they can invest in more shows, they can invest in better things and more quality into the company itself. So I really don't see anything bad in this. I would be mad if, for example, every WrestleMania was in Saudi Arabia or something. Like, that would be, I would not like that.
Could have changed everyone's attitude with a stellar performance, but oh boy, did that not happen. Once the bell rang for Shawn Michaels' return match, it was an absolute disaster. There were botches, Triple H tore his pectoral muscle, making his right arm almost useless, and overall, the match was just slow and underwhelming. About halfway through, the crowd died, and keep in mind, this match went on for over 27 minutes. Now, the one bright spot is that Shawn Michaels looked the best out of anyone in the match, but that's still not saying much. But what really earns Shawn's return as the absolute worst is that it was Shawn Michaels. He's arguably the greatest wrestler of all time, and to have this be his final match is just sad. Now, Michaels' heel turn was one of the best, but who had the absolute worst heel turn in WWE? To find out, watch the video
I
on
watched
screen.
it. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.